Good morning, viewers. I am Deepa Khatri, Deputy Director at ICSI. On behalf of ICSI, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you at this 11th session of Companies Act 2013, Enable, Evaluate and Excel in Capacity Building Initiative of ICSI. This initiative is conceptualized by our President Dr. Shyam Agrawal, and the objective of this initiative is to refresh the knowledge of all the members and deliver the expert commentary on the provisions of Companies Act 2013, along with the practical insight, deliberations on the role of professionals, and opportunities available to the members of ICSI. We already had 10 sessions in the series with a huge response from members covering various topics including related party transactions, incorporation, art of conducting general meetings, class action suits, debentures and deposits, NCLT, etc. The video recording of all these sessions have been uploaded at YouTube channel of ICSI, and the response of members at this webinar is very motivating. For this session, the topic is filing, certification and filling of annual return. As you all know that the annual return is one of the important documents which is required to be filed every year by a company. It gives a bird's eye view about the company. There are lots of practical issues with regard to filing, filling and pre-certification of annual return. So to discuss this in detail, we have with us Madam Deepti Mehta. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Madam is a founder partner of the company secretary's firm Mehta and Mehta. She is bachelor's in commerce, bachelor's in law and fellow member of ICSI. She is also an insolvency professional registered with IBBI. She is in the corporate secretarial field since last 25 years, and she is actively involved in the advisory of the Companies Act, corporate and business law, intellectual property rights, arbitration and conciliation, FSSAI compliances and other various laws. She is also a member of Sector Standards Board of India. She is member of Law Committee and Arbitration Committee of Indian Merchant Bankers. She is a member of Maharashtra State Council. Good morning, ma'am. Welcome to you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Madam will explain in detail the provisions of the Act as well as the practical aspects in the first part of the session, and the viewers can send the queries and we will take up the queries once the explanation gets over. And I hope now this session will enlighten all the viewers and all the doubts gets clarified. Now I would request Madam Deepti Mehta to take the session.
Good morning, everyone. First I'll take a small presentation, and then what I'll do, I'll take one by one each item to be mentioned in annual return and the practical aspect of that. So we'll start with the presentation. This annual return is a certification required from the practicing CS and has a major importance as regard non-financial information of the company, and it has come across a lot of changes as regards its contents and certification requirements. If we take earlier Act and Companies Act 2013, it has changed a lot of scope of content and as well as the certification requirement of annual return. The position to be given on closing date of financial year. So now it is very clear that annual return should give all the detailed as on the date of end of financial year. The financial year ending can be different, as you know very well. Now the signing requirement, it is director along with the company secretary of the company, and where there is no company secretary, practicing company secretary. Further, the requirement is the extract of the annual return is required to be mentioned or attached to the director's report of the company. We will take it later. The contents of annual return are very vast. It has many information required to be given, and of course the penal provision, which is increased to a great level. Section 92 of the Companies Act covers the annual return. Rule 11-12 of the Companies Management and Administration Rule provides the provisions, and Form MGT 7 provides the annual return, and MGT 8 provides the form for the certification of annual return by practicing company secretary. Annual return is an integral part where the annual compliance of the company are presented in one umbrella, where all the events happen during the year, including the board composition, share transfer, board change, everything is covered in this one document, which gives the information of all these changes in the company. All the events are briefed in one form, including the investment, appointment, resignation, auditor's detail, their appointment. Scope of PCS has increased because even if they are required to sign, it has a major impact, which will cover, where certification is mandatory for listed company and the companies whose paid up capital is 10 crore or more or turnover is 50 crore or more. Apart from financial statement, annual return give the non-financial information at one stroke, at one place, which is filed in public domain by the company and it is available to the world. And that's why it's very important that what is written in the annual return is properly checked and certified. Like financial statement shows financial performance, annual return give extensive disclosure and greater insight into the events of the company. It contains the detail of registered office of the company, shares, debentures, indebtedness, members, debenture holders, promoter, directors, KMP with their changes, remuneration, board meeting, committee meeting, then penalty, punishment imposed. This is very going to be crucial that you have to disclose all the penalty punishments and including the compounding. Then also the details, as I mentioned, as regards the closing date of the financial year. So, from the last date of the financial year to previous financial year to the end of this financial year, the information has to be contained in the annual return. It should be filed within 60 days of AGM. If AGM is not held in any year, the return has to be filed within 60 days from the date on which AGM would have been held, that is due date of AGM. And if you have not hold the AGM, you have to give the reasons for the same. If you are filing, there is a late fee as provided. If you are filing annual return late, you have to provide filing with the late filing fee as per the section 403 of the Act. If you file the annual return after 270 days of due, then the company is punishable with minimum fine of rupees 50,000, which may extend up to rupees 5 lakh. Now, signing requirement of annual return in case of listed company, directors and the company secretary of the company. And of course, listed company requires certification from practicing company secretary. As regards small company and one person company, it should be signed by CS where there is a CS, and if there is not CS, then by director. Here the CS is the first preference. And in case of others, director, and if there is a company secretary, then company secretary of the company, and if there is no director, no company secretary, then director and practicing company secretary. So, there may be the situation when even the listed company at that particular period, the company may not have CS, though they are required compulsorily to appoint CS. A CS must have resigned or the company is looking for CS. In such scenario also, if the company does not have CS at that time, it will be signed by practicing company secretary. Now, annual certification. Now, PCIs have a very crucial role to ensure the compliance of all the provisions of the Companies Act, which is very crucial, and rules framed thereunder. So, whatever events and the information are provided, the practicing company secretary has to check the compliance of all the provisions of the acts and rules for that event. Practicing CS has to give additional certification which needs to be attached with annual return in the form of MGT 8. And certificate is pursuant to the information. So, this certificate is based on the information given in your annual return, that is MGT 7. MGT 8 is based on MGT 7. The certification covers like facts are correctly stated, company has complied maintenance of register record, forms, minutes, closure of register of member in case of listed company, and loan to directors, loan investment, related party, issue allotment, buyback. We will cover this detail when we will go through MGT 8 again. And dividend, IPF, then dividend capped in abeyance, whether financial statement signed as per the act, details of directors, auditors, and approval obtained from authority, any alteration in memorandum and article of the company. Now, annual extract, which will be in the form MGT 9 attached to the director's report, will give, it is an extract of your mean from MGT 7. It should be signed by chairperson. In case chairperson is not authorized, then by 2 directors, of which one should be the managing director of the company if there is. Filing of the form or filing fee of the form depends upon the authorized share capital like any other form of the company. Now, statutory fees, as everyone knows, filing fees as list is attached. Next. Then statutory filing fee and additional fee if you are filing late 2 times up to 30 days and all that, it is very common, known to everyone. This is important, penalty. If you do not file the annual return within 270 days, defaulter will be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 6 months or with fine which shall not be less than 50,000 or which may extend to 5 lakhs or both, which is a good big amount. In case of non-filing of annual return for continuous period of 3 financial years, person who is or has been director of that company cannot be appointed in the same or any other company for period of 5 years. So, it becomes the disqualification of director, which has a very big impact. So, that is why the filing has to be ensured for the annual return. If the annual return, any director, any person makes a statement which is a false in any material particular to be stressed, knowing to be false, this is also important. So, if there is any false thing which is material and it is done knowingly or it omits the again material facts knowing to it to be material, he shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 6 months. It is minimum 6 months, but may extend to 10 years and shall also be liable to fine which shall not be less than the amount involved in a fraud, but we may extend to 3 times of the amount involved in the fraud. But here imprisonment is compulsory, minimum 6 months, but important point, material and knowing. Mens rea is an important aspect for this non-compliance.
So here ma'am, if can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
The term any person, whether it includes the practicing company secretary and the
Yeah,
company
of
secretary
course.
of a company also?
Yeah.
So-
Company secretary, practicing CS, whosoever has signed or certified will be subject to the same.
So certification part here is also very important.
Very
So-
important. And because as even a CS and in the absence of CS, PCS sign.
Okay. So he will be held liable for false statements.
Equally they will be liable.
So he has to be very cautious.
Very
while
careful,
certifying.
very careful, you are right. Now, by the shareholders, this is another impact can be the class of shareholders or depositor may file an application in tribunal alleging that management or conduct of affairs of the company are being conducted in manner prejudicial to the company, its members, depositors. Such shareholders can file suit against the company, director, officer, any other person wrongful or fraudulent act. This can lead to, not necessary, but can lead to
Based
class
on
action.
the information in the annual
Yeah,
return.
yeah, right. That they have given
Okay.
wrong information
Information.
or hidden the information.
Okay. So that way annual
And that's-
return,
yeah.
filing and filling part is very important.
Yeah, they will say that the affairs of the company are not done. That's why they are giving this way false information or hiding the information.
And the tribunal can then
Take the
address
action,
this.
yeah.
Okay.
Again, for the company, non-filing of the returns, expiry period of even after expiry of period of 270 days, company shall be also punishable with fine, which shall not be less than 50,000, but can extend to 5 lakhs. The company has defaulted in filing annual return for the immediate preceding 5 financial year. The company may be wound up by tribunal. This is provided in section 271, which has a very big impact. If the company has defaulted in filing annual return for the immediate preceding 5 financial year, company may be wound up by tribunal.
Okay, that is suo moto, ma'am.
Yeah.
The tribunal can on its own take
On
an
its
action.
own take action. It is a big.
Very important document.
If the company has not filed its annual return for last 2 financial year, it will be termed as inactive company as per section 441 subsection 1. Further, the registrar shall issue the notice to the company and entering his name in the register of dormant company as per section 455 subsection 4. So, for 2 years you can be, if you don't file for 2 years, it will be inactive company, and so cause for terming the company, treating as a dormant company. For 3 years, directors become disqualified. For 5 years, you can be subject to wound up. So, it has a very big impact. 1 year fine, 270 days, be sure that you file it. 2 years has immediate impact. So, that's why it's required to be taken care.
On ma'am MGT 9, we have received a question that whether it requires signature of directors.
MGT 9 we have covered the signature of the chairperson.
Okay.
And if the chairperson is not authorized by any 2 director, of which one should be managing director if there is in the company.
Okay. So primarily it's the duty of the chairman. If
Yeah,
he is not
right.
there, then the 2
Two
directors and
directors.
one should be MD.
Right.
Okay. And the next question also relates to signing. What should be the date of signing of MGT 8?
MGT 8 signing will be when you are certifying the date of certification, because that certification will happen after your annual accounts and AGM is over.
Okay.
After that you prepare MGT 7, that MGT 7 content you certify in MGT 8.
Okay.
So, it can be the date after MGT 7 or it can be the date of MGT 7 date itself.
Okay. And that is required to be filed with MGT 7.
Right, MGT 7, MGT 8, and
those-
9
okay.
will be attached with the director's.
Director's report. Okay. So we continue with our presentation.
Of course, how you can compound the offense of non-filing of annual return? Application for compounding has to be made to ROC, where the register office of the company is located, in form GNL1 with attachments. You are required to attach board resolution, profile, history of company, facts of the case, and in notice received, then the copy of that notice, and the ROC office, after going through the content of application, shall calculate maximum amount of penalty and forward the application to regional director or tribunal based on the amount of penalty involved. Now, also please note that if any false statement, the provisions of the act will be applicable, and if section 92, if you don't file within stipulated time, you have to pay penalty of 50,000, which go up to 5 lakhs and imprisonment or imprisonment 6 months. PCS penalty is also there up to 50,000, but which may extend to 5 lakhs rupees. Now, better we take the annual return, that is MGT 7, one by one. We will take the matter included in MGT 7. I will put that the PCS, practicing CS, play a 2 role in annual return. Either they sign or certify, or they sign also and certify also. If you observe, the signing is more onerous than certification. I will come to that later. So, as and when annual return is required to be signed by practicing CS, ensure MCA inspection is taken of that company, so that the practicing CS has all the details submitted by the company with the government. Memorandum and article, which is also necessary because compliance of that is to be ensured, and of course the accounts of the company, details of which is also covered under the annual return. Now, if we start with the item number 1, then registration detail, of course the same number, everyone knows this. Then GLN number, global location number, it is not yet covered. Then of course PAN number, you have to fill it yourself, PAN number. Then name of the company and register office address. Now here I will put the situation that as regards annual return, you have to give the information as on the date of last date of financial year of the company. Suppose your financial year ends on March and somewhere in April or May the company has changed the name, then it will be pre-filled the moment you give SIN number. So, it will give the name which is there of the company as on the date when you are submitting the form, not as on the date of 31st March if your financial year ending on that date.
So that means whatever is with the ministry, that would be automatically get pre-filled.
Pre-filled.
Okay. Okay.
Then next is registered office. The same situation, if you have shifted, it will still give. Again here I would like to draw the attention of a company secretary as well as practicing CS. In registered office address, please check the address. Many times the company just give the building name. It does not give specific office number or a particular location. Many times it's only road number. This is not correct. Please note that registered office is a very important thing and CS responsibility to check the registered office address is immense. And if the situation comes that the authority has to attach the registered office, I have faced this practical situation. The client has given the name of a building and in that only 3 parties fighting with each other, all brothers sisters were staying, and each one is telling my house is not the registered office, and the authority was helpless where to go, where to see. So, I will request please check that. Sometimes they write entire floor. This is not the correct way of giving the registered office address. It should be very specific, and if possible check that there is a registered office. As you know, many times it is not there. So, it is the duty of CS and practicing CS to ensure the registered office address location.
On this registered office address, if it gets pre-filled, so we can change it manually. Can we change it? Registered
no,
office address gets
no,
pre-filled?
it is also get pre-filled, and that is why here that if it is pre-filled you will not able to change, but you should advise the client please change this.
In INC 22.
And change the registered office, because you will not automatically, even MCA will not change just because you inform.
Okay.
So, you have to change the registered office, file the form and accordingly get your master data updated according to that.
Okay, okay.
That should
Manually it
be.
is not
No,
able to.
no,
Okay,
no,
okay.
no.
All right.
Okay. Then email ID of the company. Now again email ID, please ensure that it is working email ID, not any ID. Again try to give one test check mail and see that it is getting delivered. That is necessary.
And this in this email ID, the email ID of directors can be given, or specific for a company one has
Some
to
create it.
create it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is the requirement.
Okay.
Then telephone number also, this you have to fill it, it doesn't get pre-filled. Again you have to give with the STD code, and also here also better you check that phone is really working. These are the basic thing we have to take care.
In this telephone number, can we give the mobile numbers? Because I think nowadays landlines are very less, and people have, companies also have lots of mobile numbers.
Mobile
only.
numbers.
So
But,
whether it takes mobile number also
But it is basically the telephone number
with
of the
STD
company.
of the company with the STD code.
So that's why it is required to be
So that
landline
means-
number.
So that means every company has to take a landline.
Right. Yeah.
It's mandatory by law.
La. And website, again here what happens that company which is not required compulsory to have website, they do not note down or fill this information, and it leave it without information. But if the company has website, please check that you have to give information of website. It is not that website is compulsory required, then only you have to give. If the company has website, you give the details. So check that the company has website. One another requirement not related to this, but if the company has website, then mandatory requirement of Companies Act, which always repeatedly in this act mentioned, if the company has website, you have to give this information. See that the company has given all that information. Date of incorporation, and of course the next is type of company, category of company, subcategory of company. Type is public, private, person, then limited by guarantee, unlimited, and subcategory is Indian non-government, guarantee, associate, subsidiary of foreign company. Then also it asks whether the shares are listed on the exchange. So annual return covers only the shares listed company as a listed company, not debenture listed.
Ma'am, we are discussing the format. Here the question we have received it, whether change in the presentation of annual return is permissible. The
This
format
form-
can be,
No.
this form we cannot change.
We cannot
We
change.
cannot change. The format we have to, but if someone wants to give, I think, additional information, that can be given
That
as an
can be
optional,
optional attachment.
Okay.
Now you have to also give financial year from the date to this date. This is very crucial. As I mentioned that there can be different financial year ending. So always keep in mind that financial year ending can be December. Accordingly the information will be covered from January to December, and if it is March ending, from April to March. Then whether AGM is held, if yes, due date of AGM, if any extension is granted to hold the AGM, then you have to give SRN number of application made for extension and attach the approval letter you obtain for extension of AGM. Then comes the principal business activity. Here many efforts, little bit efforts is required, and till 10 business activity you can cover here. Now in main business activity also you have to give the code. If it is manufacturing, then business activity code, because in manufacturing again what kind of manufacturing. The intention here was that whether the company is manufacturing, whether it's the service provider or broking or like that way. That way differentiate the company and give the information. In that again, if it is manufacturing, which all activity it's manufacturing, that they wanted to give, and the total turnover of the company. Now each activity contribute how much to the total turnover of the company, which decide the allocation of resources by the company to different activity. and accordingly what return the company is getting from each activity. Accordingly, the future decision of the efficacy or otherwise of the company efficiency can be decided and can be planned accordingly. This is for the information. Also, the outside world knows that what kind of activity the company is doing. This is the reason this can be this way, it is bifurcated. But what happens that in description of business activity, there are 3 business activity clubbed in one code only. For example, if it is manufacturing, then business activity of food, beverage and tobacco all are has one code. Now, it has a 3 different industry, different implications, and then you have to give percentage of turnover which that activity contributes. So, honestly it is not giving that clear idea, but still it has tried to differentiate the activity and its contribution to the turnover of the company and some information as regards the various activities of the company. This you can check from the notes to the accounts, because you have to check that how much percentage of turnover each activity is contributing to the total turnover of the company.
Ma'am, on this business activities, what documents practicing company secretary should see to verify what all are the business activities of the company?
As I mentioned that, of course, as I covered later, that you have to take management representation, that is obvious, but the thing that notes to the accounts, because they have to give segment wise reporting and the different activity which is contributing to the turnover and the ultimate financial results of the company. Okay. So, you have to check that and then actually verify that it is there.
And memorandum of association, will that be
helpful? Of course, good point, that memorandum of association, whether that activity is actually covered in the object clause of the company.
Reconcile.
Right, right. But what happens in memorandum, there are 20 activities covered, but actually the company may be doing 2 activities.
Okay. So, broadly memorandum should cover that, and then one can see from the notes to the accounts to the accounts
as such.
Okay.
Then the one has to give the particulars of holding subsidiary and associate companies, including joint venture company. Now, how many companies, and then you have to give the name of the company, and it also says SIN and FCRN number. Now, here I was wondering why FCRN, because FCRN number is given to the foreign company's office registered in India, and we are talking about holding subsidiary and associate company. And if the company is foreign company, it will not have SIN number, so you need not write that. And you also have to give in the last column the percentage of shares held by the company in that holding subsidiary, associate or JV company. You can check this from the balance sheet, that is from investments. The thing here important will be in joint venture company where there is no investment is made, you can't get information from the balance sheet. If only technical information is shared and joint venture is that way, there you have to take it from the management. Next item is the details of share capital, debentures and other securities of the company. In that earlier it was the list of transfers. If it exists 10, the option of CD and digital media was allowed. Now this form is again updated in February only, and along with this form there is another form get downloaded, in which you have to give the information of all transfers, detailed information, the format is given. The same should be attached along with this form. Here for transfer, again you have to check the contents. So, the registers of the company and share transfer deed, that is very crucial, that you have to check, that whether if share transfer deed is complete in all respect, duly executed, stamped, which will be now only online stamping, not physical, it is very clear, and it is complete in all respect has to be given, that to be checked by practicing CS or CS. Date of registration will be date of the board meeting or committee meeting which approved this transfers. Then the type of transfers and mention. Number of shares, debentures, unit transfer. Here unit is another point to be something is new word. Then of course you have to give the details of transferor, transferee, everything you have to give.
Ma'am, on registered office we discussed the question we received is that please guide when we incorporate the company. The address of registered office is given and it is updated on the portal.
Right.
Then while certification, according to you, how can we check registered office address if company has not changed since its inception?
I did not mention that changed or anything. I am telling that I agree fully and I mentioned that as regards registered office, it's when the company incorporated, the person who certifies has to check the location of the registered office. It's required, it's a prime duty.
Okay.
So either you can rely on that or you check yourself. According to me, many times the registered office, though same place, is not active also, which is also very crucial. Further, I mentioned that address is not complete. My stress was also that like entire building name is given, it is not
the
correct
specific
there.
floor
it should
or
be
it should be
specific
specifically-
office
okay.
number and all
Okay, that is required.
this is observed quite frequently and that's why I mentioned that it is not correct. When you are certifying, signing, you can make it out that this address is not complete, correct or indicative of the correct registered office of the company.
But whether that may be termed as false statement, I think no.
It is not false statement, but when you are giving the information and you are professional,
It should be sufficiently correct so that
sufficiently,
anyone,
this is
the shareholders should know the exact address.
right,
Okay.
and this care should be taken by our company secretary,
Correct.
and that is to be mentioned, and that's why I said it is our duty to check this.
Correct. Okay.
Okay. Then our details of indebtedness is coming, that is debentures, deposits, loans, secured, unsecured. Now these details again you have to take it from the accounts only, because secured loans, unsecured loan, what is mentioned in the accounts you have to give.
And if I am not wrong, in the company's amendment bill, this item indebtedness is proposed to be omitted now.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Because accounts is covering that way.
Yeah.
Now details of debenture, non-convertible, partly, fully, then outstanding as at beginning, change during the year and outstanding. Then other securities, which can be the other security, can be a GDR or bond, and the details of that security is given, type of security, number, nominal value, paid up, etc. Then comes the turnover and net worth of the company. It's very well defined under the Act, under section 291, that is section 2 subsection 91. The turnover is defined, and section 2 subsection 57 defines the net worth of the company. I am not repeating this, but the turnover is the as per the balance sheet, and also the net worth you have to calculate from the balance sheet of the company. You have to ensure that it is as per the definition mentioned in the Act. Here one very interesting question I got from one of the client, because his turnover was crossing the limit and it was subject to secretarial audit, and he mentioned that around 20% this portion is for excise and all that, which is not earned by me, it is earned for the government and not by the company. Company has not earned this money, so why it should be included, it should be excluded? Then I am outside the scope of secretarial audit. It was for a second I was also shocked, if you think, but it is not that way. You have to do inclusive taxation. So certain companies do think that their tax portion,
They may exclude to come out with the from that scope.
compliances.
Yeah.
Further compliance like secretarial audit or CSR or
Correct, correct. And we must mention here that the regulators also check from this data only, whether that particular company is within the scope of CSR or the committees or the sectoral audit. So these points are very important from regulators' points of view also.
Yeah, I pointed out because for a second even I was thinking that his point was to be noted that company is not earning, but it's a fact. You have to take it.
But one must mention these data from the audited
balance sheet of the company only. Then comes, if the company is with the share capital, the shareholding pattern of the promoters category and others, public and other than promoters. Now, if you see afterwards, you have to give that the pattern whereby how much promoter is holding, members is holding, and debenture holder. The definition of promoter is given in section 2, subsection 69. Means a person who has been named as such in a prospectus or is identified by the company in annual return. So, whosoever name you are writing as a promoter in prospectus or annual return will be termed as promoter as per this definition. Now, the one has to be very careful here. The person who is promoter is responsible under the act. So, the person who has set up the company, who has control over the affairs of the company should be named as promoter. Earlier Companies Act was telling that the person who has conceived the idea and set up the business will be the promoter. But now it is what you name in the prospectus or annual return is a promoter.
He will be termed as promoter.
Promoter.
On this promoter, we have received a question: who all should be considered as promoters in MGT 7 that you rightly explained?
Yeah.
And whether non-equity directors are to be considered as promoter or not. That means whether a promoter should be a director or should hold any share in the company or directorship in the company.
That is not the requirement as such, because there is another B in which in this same definition it says who has control over the affairs of the company directly or indirectly. This indirectly is a very crucial thing, whether as a shareholder, director or otherwise. So, it is not required that only shareholder will be promoter, only director will be the promoter. There can be somebody who is neither shareholder nor director.
So, only the controlling aspect is important.
Right.
One controls the company.
Right. It can be the arrangement and by the agreement, and it can be that person can be the promoter of the company. It also says that a person, third option C is the definition says, in accordance with whose advice or direction or instruction the board of directors of the company is accustomed to act, of course provided nothing this applies to person acting in professional capacity. So, this give very much exemption that whether the company, the promoter is shareholder, director, or it may not be either of it, still the person can be promoter.
Correct.
Who has affairs, control over the affairs of the company and under or subject to whose direction the board of directors of the company is accustomed to it.
This is a very broad point, under whose direction one is accustomed to act.
Now, how to check this is going to be challenging.
Yeah.
But here you can specifically ask this question, and the companies do enter into this kind of arrangement and agreement. So, better you ask specifically. So, many times the intention is not there, but the lack of knowledge or understanding on the part of company may be there. So, better you ask this kind of question. So, if this kind of agreement is there, the same is provided to you.
Okay.
Because this will be kind of a written arrangement or agreement in which the affairs of the company will be controlled. Then you have to give composition, details of directors and KMP. Of course, you have to check the register also here. In composition also you have to give percentage of shares held by the directors. You can check it again MBP 1 also, disclosure by directors. And of course, the number of director KMP, which can be CFO, CS, CEO, MD or manager. Then you have to give details of directors, and their shareholding, KMP, and if there is a suggestion, the details for that.
Ma'am, you talked about the shareholding. The company needs to provide shareholding also with the form.
Right.
So, whether the form in which shareholding is mentioned is required to be signed.
No, the form is the like say I mentioned for directors MBP1 is there, it gives detail. Again, your register also include the shareholding positions or your registrar who give the detail.
Correct.
That gives, from there you can check. The same way KMP, you have to take it that the whether they are holding. It's when you take the details from the respective KMP, of course it's required to be signed. It is a declaration by them.
Okay.
Meeting of members, class of members, board, committee, board of directors. Now here all the compliance you are required to check whether a required number of meetings, committee of board is held, whether the quorum is necessarily required as present, then whether it is carried out as per the secretarial standard. You have to check the record of notice, minutes, attendance sheet, etc. One interesting point is that it does not talk about meeting of independent directors, which is also a very important part and compulsory under the Companies Act, but it is not covered under this at present.
Okay.
And also now it also say meeting kind of members, class of shareholders or class of members, requisition meeting, NCLT conveyed, NCLT and court conveyed meeting. Now since all the powers is with NCLT, now court will not be there because merger, amalgamation, all powers are shifted to NCLT.
Correct.
Now then you have to give details of the meeting and the number of members and that attended, attendance, their percentage of holding of person attending the meeting. Then board meeting, in that also how many board meeting, number of directors. Here one word is used, total number of directors associated as on date of meeting. This is something new word as associated. A directors is directors of the company.
He is always associated with the company.
When he is a director of the company, he is associated. Then attendance, number of directors and his percentage of attendance. This looks that how many meeting his attendance level is shown. Then committee meeting, same way details you have to give.
In this board meetings, ma'am, the meetings of independent directors, whether those are required to be disclosed?
But independent directors are not board.
They are not board, correct?
They are not committee also.
They are not
It
committee
is
also.
a separate thing only.
But if annual return is for greater disclosure, one must give the details of meetings of independent director also.
Yeah,
stakeholders are concerned with that also.
Yeah, but where you will write, that is another thing. Disclosure is because it will be wrong disclosure. If we write in board meeting also, it will not be right. And
Correct.
if we write in committee meeting, then also it will not be right. Because one important thing that if you term it as a board or committee, then secretarial standard is applicable. For independent directors meeting, secretarial standard is not applicable as such.
Correct.
Then remuneration of directors, KMP, a very difficult information, as all members know. People are concerned to give this information. Then you have to take it from the accounts and director's report and all information from there. Then also you have to check the DIR 8 where director says that they are not disqualified to be director, and also independent director disclosure that they are fulfilling the criteria. Then number of CEO, CFOs, company secretary, that detail is given. Their salary, commission, stock option, share, sweat equity or any other remuneration is covered.
On salary, ma'am, the question is whether remuneration to an executive director not designated or appointed as whole-time director in case of a private company Whether that has to be disclosed in MGT 7.
If we have to give of directors, executive director, if he is a member of director, a board of director, he become a director.
Correct. So
Then
that
you
is
have to
required.
get required. If you are giving the designation but not member of the board, then you are not required to give if he is not KMP.
Okay.
But that is also not correct, and it is repeatedly is instructed by the ministry that a designation which mislead the public should be avoided, like
Okay.
executive director who are not member of board. A common public will understand it as a member of the
Correct,
board.
correct, correct.
So
So,
this should be
ED, the executive director, should be a member of the board,
Yeah.
and the remuneration should be disclosed in the
Right,
annual return
right,
accordingly.
Now, important comes matters related to certification of compliances and disclosure. Here, the point is written whether the company has made compliances and disclosure in respect of applicable provisions of the Companies Act during the year. Here, everything is covered, because here they are telling whether company has made compliances and disclosure in respect of applicable provisions of the Act. Now, when you say applicable provision, it depends on the events happen. So, here you have to ask the what all events happen of the company. Now, you can mention here that the details may be certain events which are not covered here in the part earlier we discussed. But if that event happened, like postal ballot, whether compliances has been done for that or not.
Okay. So one should report here if
Yeah.
that is not complied with.
Because there is a very big statement that,
All the provisions of the Companies
yeah,
Act.
it says has compliances in respect of applicable provisions. Now, if any event happened, then the provisions become applicable.
Correct. So
And it
it's,
says applicable provisions. So, you have to check whether this provision is applicable to the company or not. It will be applicable if that event happens. So, what your question should be whether this event happened during the year with the company. So, the information is not given, but here it is covering.
okay. So in a way, it's a detailed audit of
Right,
the company for the
right.
entire year. The company secretary has to be very cautious. He has to see all the important events
Right,
during the
right.
year.
Entire compliances. Actually, when the act was introduced, the annual return was there. That format was very exhaustive. It was covering many information. Now it is diluted. The information is less. So one will think that okay, fine, less information and less confirmation by the signatory. But if you read this,
11th point is
is really catchy.
really catchy. Correct.
It says complied all the provisions of applicable act, and you cannot decide whether this provisions is applicable to the company or not unless you know the events happen. And it's your duty to check whether this event happened or not. So I will put that way also, that related party transaction which is not covered. But if you see this MGT8 do cover. So in the company where the certification is not required, one will think that I have to check and sign this much. But it cannot be, it can be this. That applicable provision, you have to ask whether there was any related party transaction, and then you check whether the provisions applicable to related party transactions has been complied by the company or not. It become duty, because it's straightway question whether the company has made compliances and disclosure in respect of applicable provisions of the Companies Act during the year. Yes, no, straight yes, no.
So that means the pre-certification of annual return cannot be done in one day.
Right, of course not.
It cannot be.
It
will.
cannot
You will have to spend
It's a
at
very-
least a week or 15 days
Yeah,
for getting
depending
all
on
the
it.
information, depending on the facts of the company.
I'll put that way, it is the total audit of all the compliances of the Companies Act. I'll say that the entire working of the secretarial department of the company get checked by this practicing CS. And if I will put that way, whether certification required or not, if you are signing this, even MGT 7 require that under this 11 point.
In a way, it's also a pre-certification of annual return.
Signing, we will come to signing portion. At that time, since I said that signing is more onerous than certification. If you
In
observe.
this annual return.
Right. Now the B point says, if no, if your answer is no, that company has not complied, then give reasons and observations.
Okay.
So here you again give the non-compliances, whether CS is appointed or not, if required, like woman director, this kind of
Okay,
all the
composition
your
of board,
observation,
everything.
everything you have to cover.
So is there any word limit in this box? It seems very small.
I think so. Company do not have much observation.
Correct. It should
we have
be
to
a
say
compliant company.
we have to say that how many. It can be because as the form is keep on changing and you keep on adding that as you put on option, it unfold the areas. So it may be opening more. Then of course this another. Now the very all important points are coming. The 12th is penalty and punishment, and in that you have to give details.
As we go deeper into the annual return, it's become very
Little scary.
hot and scary.
Details of penalties, punishment imposed on company, directors and officers. And if you read the column, it says name of the company, name of the court, concerned authority, date of order. Then it says name of the act and section under which penalized or punished. This is a crucial thing. This entire annual return is under Companies Act. But this column says the name of the act. So it means that acts other than Companies Act. Here many people has arguments and difference of opinion that it applies only for the penalty prosecution under Companies Act. But if you read this, it says the name of the act. This name of the act is specifically required. Otherwise, this entire form is under Companies Act. And that's why they have mentioned name of the act. You have not to mention Companies Act here. Detail of penalty, detail of appeal and the present status of appeal.
And in this, the penalty is imposed on the company, directors and officers. So officers here means any officer of the company. It's very vast.
Very vast.
Or one level below the board.
So anyone, see again also in the prosecutions and all that, the concluded where there is a prosecution or penalty, the pending litigation you have to not to give.
Okay, the concluded.
And when there is a prosecution, it is somebody responsible officer under that act will be penalized. It's not that low level person will be penalized.
Correct.
Always each act has a particular level of
identified
people.
officers.
Right. So they will be penalized.
Okay.
So that you have to mention. Now how to get the information of this? Because the company will be very concerned.
Correct.
When you interpret in this way that all the acts, then it is a very vast, and how you rely. So here you have to rely on management representation.
Okay.
And you have to explain this. As I mentioned, there is a lot of difference of opinion is there, but I understand that guidance note on annual return of our institute, which is very important and very informative book, also has clarified that
This is the one. This is the latest version.
Yeah,
and,
it's really very good book.
Yeah, it covers all the practical aspects which one needs to know about filling and filing of the annual return is covered.
There is a very important book. One has to have it with it when you file the annual return or certify annual return. It is very elaborative and very helpful. The same is also clarifying that it is other acts. You must have clarified or confirmed with the MCA.
That all the acts, not only the Companies Act, if there is a penalty under any act, then that has to be stated here.
Yeah.
And for checking that, one should take the management
representation. I understand it's really difficult. Then details of compounding of offence. This is also a very strange because earlier compounding of offense means we say that no prosecution.
Yeah.
So, details was not given anywhere, but now even if compounding, that means you have not complied and then compounded. So, that details is also required. And please note that again it refer act, name of the act. Now, one may argue that MGT 9, which is extract of this annual return from MGT 7, in this it says Companies Act, this column. And that says Companies Act. So, one may argue that when MGT 9, which is the extract of this form itself, it clarifies that it is the Companies Act, then why one should give any other act? But I will put that way, it is in penalty, punishment, compounding offense, type, section of the Companies Act, brief description, details of penalty, authority RD, NCLT court, appeal made any, give details. Here it is mentioning Companies Act. So, one will argue that it is referred Companies Act in MGT 9, then why MGT 7 you should give all the information. Then I will put that this is the main form and it is extract.
Yeah, and we have all discussion with the regulators, and the intent of the regulators is to cover all the laws which is provided in the guidance note on the annual return.
So, now you have to show it to the companies, this guidance note that this is clarified and it is clarified from MCA, wide our institute, and we are required to do this
All the
disclosures, all the laws. Now, you have to give complete list of shareholder debentures, and as I mentioned, it is a compulsory attachment with all the details it is given, required to be given. In case of listed company, the certification required, that is covered, that, and the company with the share capital of 10 crore paid up share capital and turnover of 50 crore or more require this certification. Now, after that comes, we certified that the return state facts as they stood on that date of closure of financial aforesaid correctly and adequately, unless otherwise expressly stated. That we mentioned item number 11, where I mentioned that you have to give detail of non-compliances, where I said whatever the applicable provision was item number A. Expressly stated to the contrary elsewhere in this return, the company has complied with all the provisions of the Act during the financial year. So, here comes all the provisions of the Act during the financial year. So, in board meeting, whether quorum is there, whether interested quorum, interested director has participated or disinterested, everything. This line covers everything. So, again I am confirming that it's not only this information what you are stating in earlier columns, but all the relevant compliances also you are required to check, and that because secretarial standard is part of the Act, and that is why applicable provision, you have to check the secretarial standard compliances as well. So, if you see that even though it is not certification, MGT 7 itself is very vast.
Very vast. A relevant question here is that, ma'am, if a company come to you on the last date of annual return,
right,
and MGT 8 is also required to be certified, and the company has not completed their registers, then what company secretary should do? How can he check? And that is yeah.
Actually, you have to qualify, and the thing that I'll advise that we have not to hurry and always accommodate the client, because in that you are creating liability for yourself as well.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, it in details so many information. You get the details which is mentioned there. It is your duty to check the correctness of each thing. There may be the situation I mentioned that MCA search you have to do and see that what all events happened during the year, and whether the company has complied all the provisions as pertaining to that events. So, if you can do it and you can require the company and complete the registers, maybe 1 or 2 entry, and you can say that you want to comply, but it is.
And if registers are not completed,
Yeah,
there may
how
be certain
you-
other options
options
also,
are-
like filing of forms at the MC website one can check from, and there may
Yeah,
be certain
no,
other
but
documents from
I
which
will
one
put
can.
that way that registers are not up to date is another
It
non-compliance
is
of the
also
Companies
so
Act.
one should write there in annual return that
So,
these are not.
here I will say that each professional has to take its call, but not to hurry. Please note that you are responsible along with the directors.
Correct, and the penalties are huge.
Huge. And of course, our institute is also standing for professional misconduct.
Yes.
So, that is also a very big impact as a professional on you. Now, there comes the declaration. That is by directors that I am authorized by board to sign this form and declare that all the requirements of the act and rules that made thereunder, a subject matter of this form and matters incidental thereto have been complied with. And I will go this declaration very slowly because this should be signed by director as well as company secretary of the company.
Okay.
So, I will request the company secretary of the company also to be careful, because what they will be more responsible here because they are professionally qualified.
And they should be known to have all the knowledge of all the provisions of the law.
Right. And if practicing company secretary also signs, this declaration is also given by this practicing CS.
Okay.
So, if you say the declaration is first the authority, so there should be resolution. Either you can have a common resolution, one resolution whereby the directors are authorized, or can be specific. Then further declaration, it says that, what it says that, authorized to sign this form and declare that all the requirements of the Companies Act 2013 and rules made thereunder in respect of the subject matter of this form and matters incidental thereto, this is a very vast, have been complied with. I further declare that whatever stated in this form and the attachment thereto is true, correct and complete, and no information material to the subject matter of this form has been suppressed or concealed and is as per the original records maintained by the company. This makes compulsory for you to check the original records of the company. And in the current thing, original record registers itself is not updated. All the required attachments have been completely and legibly attached to this form. This is very crucial, legibly, because the clients will try to give the documents which are not legible and it is not correct. You attach this form. The government office, our registrar office and MCA is issuing so cause notice for this. You may be knowing the cases have happened in this case. So, please insist till it is legible, then only attach the documents, otherwise do not attach. It is not correct, you are giving that declaration. And do not think that so cause notice does not come for this, so cause notice do come for this.
Okay.
And penalties are imposed. Attention is also drawn, this is very important, to the
That is why
provision
it is bold also.
to the provisions of section 447, section 448 and 449 of the Companies Act 2013, which provide for punishment of fraud, punishment for false statement and punishment for false evidence respectively. So, this is lead, any false thing will lead you to the punishment for fraud, which is we have already covered imprisonment, minimum imprisonment and penalty, which is huge amount, go up to 3 times of the fraud amount involved. So, one has to be very careful here. Then of course, it should be signed by the director and company secretary, and where there is no company secretary, by practicing secretary. We have covered this. You have to check all the forms, postal ballot, everything here.
There are lots of questions on applicability of filing of annual return and certification for Section 8 companies.
Okay. As regards Section 8 company, there is no, this act has not made any difference. It says company.
Yeah.
So even Section 8 company is covered and they are not been given any exemption. So the provisions of signature, certification, all that what we discussed,
Equally
they
applicable to Section 8 company
companies.
also. Okay.
Then attachment is there, like list of shareholder, then approval letter of AGM, MGT8. An optional attachment, here you can attach many things like what I mentioned, that change of name happened in April. So you can inform that here in optional attachment.
Okay.
Or anything which you want to add it here can be covered in the optional attachment. And one should try to clarify the point so that it shows that you have taken proper care and precautions in signing or signing these forms. So that is required, that is to be given.
Like we have lots of questions of for change of format of annual return. So in the optional attachment, if anybody wants to give any information, one can get through the optional attachment.
And of course, each CS has problem because this form is continuously changing. Honestly, I'll say I asked in my office, what is the practical difficulty since I was coming, practical difficulties in filing this form. I got one answer, it keeps on changing and we have to keep on refilling. So let's hope it is, but it's evolving. As I say that other than accounts which give all financial information, it's very vast document. This is non-financial information and it's all crucial, covers entire compliance of the provisions of the Companies Act. It's obviously lot of nitty-gritty is involved here. Now we will come to form MGT8 for certification. Here, of course, it's very clear you have examined register, records, books and papers of the limited or company and rules they are made under during the year. And according to your knowledge and best of information and according to the examination carried out by you, an explanation furnished by the company officer and agent, you certify that. Here you say, that's why I was telling, here you can rely on all this, that you have whatever available records, what is in the public domain, you have checked, whatever information explanation given to you, what are the MGT7 content, all that, based on that you are doing this. Okay. But while you sign, you are required to certify the content is correct and all that, and that's why the onus is still more. But that's why only here when you sign also, that time you better take MR.
Okay.
Because as a practicing CS, as a CS you can't take, but as a practicing CS you can surely take MR that these are the correct information, because all information may not be available, or else you have to ask all the informations, like as we discussed the penalties. Now original records, how you know that these are the only original records, so you have to take MR. So these are certain things where you can take it from the directors and the company.
And company secretaries are advised to cooperate with practicing company secretaries while doing this certification
and all that, right, very much, because they both are equally responsible, I'll put that way.
Yeah.
That CS come first responsible and practicing CS come next.
Correct.
And that's why CS rather took it as a support and should support the practicing CS to dig out where there is any mistakes happen, there are certain lapses happen, or certain thing which is required to be disclosed. That all can be very well advised by practicing CS and should be relied upon and should be convinced to the management that this is required to be done for the compliances.
Correct.
Now the annual return state the facts at the close of the financial year correctly and adequately. Then here you are required to compliance of the provisions of the Act, that is Companies Act and rules made thereunder. It's required all the compliance of Companies Act only, including for listed company.
Okay.
the status of the company under the act, private, public, listed and all that, maintenance of registers, records and entries therein within the time prescribed therefore. Note that making entries therein within the time prescribed therefore, that earlier question that registers are not up to date,
Correct.
here is your qualification or observation. Filing of forms and returns,
So one must not hesitate in qualifying.
you have no choice.
You have no choice. Correct. Because regulators rely on this pre-certification on professionals only.
Right.
So professionals should always they should always guide the companies to do all the compliances, so that there should be minimum non-compliances and there should be minimum qualifications. So it should be a duty of the practicing company secretary to always guide them every year on all aspects.
Right. The and intention is here that the compliance culture get developed in the corporates. As the practicing CS or the CS, with on the advice of practicing CS, if they explain the consequences, reasons why insistence, why this information is given, then and what will be the consequences if it is not complied, and convince the management the importance of this, then it is very crucial that this all should be complied. So in future again the same is not repeated.
Yeah.
Then filing of forms written as stated in annual return with registrar of companies, regional director, central government, tribunal. So what you have written in the annual return, that is forms and written as stated in the annual return, whether it is filed within the prescribed time with the authority. Then calling, convening, holding board meeting committee and members on due days as stated there in annual return. Again here it is mentioned whether proper notice is given, including circular resolution and postal ballot if any, whether properly recorded, and in the registers, closure of register, advances and loans to directors. I was talking these points that these are all not in MGT 7. But if it says it is this like loan to director is given or posted ballot is happened, then all the provisions of the acts and rules relating to postal ballot become applicable.
Correct.
Becomes the applicable provisions for that company during that financial year. And the CS or practicing CS has to check that is complied with, because you are declaring that it is complied.
Correct.
So I'll put that MGT 8 elaborate, MGT 7 in one line, give you indication you have to check everything.
Correct. And MGT 8, I think that's a compliance certificate which was there in 1956 Act.
Right. And it is increasing the scope more and more now actually.
Correct.
Advances loan, then related party transaction, then transfer, transmission, buyback, redemption of securities. Then of course the dividend, right issue, bonus issue, and abeyance of dividend, payment of dividend, unclaimed dividend, transfer to unpaid dividend, and transfer to investor education protection fund. All that compliances one has to check and certify. Then of course whether accounts are signed as per the requirement of the act, and whether the director, KMP are appointed as per the provisions, the composition of board as per the provisions of the Companies Act, and whether they are qualified to be appointed. They have given all necessary disclosure, as I was telling, if independent director, the disclosure, if director, their disclosure, KMP. Then casual vacancy, appointment, information as regards appointment, reappointment, casual vacancy of auditor as per the act. As you know, now the rotation of auditor is required, so even that you have to check. Again I'll put that even MGT 7 this is required, because this is applicable provisions.
Correct. So broadly this is covering all the important aspects of the Companies Act provisions.
This is covering important, and
MGT
I think all. But if there is something which we may not exhaustively know, you have to cover all the events, all compliances. That is the one line, whether it is MGT7 or MGT8.
Okay.
It is coming out that way now.
I think the format of this can be changed, and apart from these 18 points, one can go ahead with putting more and more points.
Yeah,
if certain events is very important for that particular company,
Right.
one can add that.
And there is a certain compliance under Companies Act for that.
Correct.
Then deposits, very important topic. Then borrowing from director, member, all that provisions, loan investment, and alteration memorandum article. And it is written that qualification, reservation or adverse remarks, if any, as may be stated at the relevant places. So, at that place only you have to write, not as a separate attachment or down. It's very specifically mentioned. So, in 18th point, when you are referring the alteration memorandum, and if you find that there is non-compliance, you have to write there.
Okay.
The company has altered the provision, however, the company has not filed the form or whatever non-compliance, you have to write it here.
Okay.
So,
But if
when
something is there which is not captured in these 18 points, that can be
added as a, yeah,
But if it relates to 18 points, the particular serial number one has to mention.
right. So, this is also a very important thing. Then many times people ask that there is a mistake happened in the annual return, some information is wrongly given. For example, AGM date. It's by human error it happened, but there are all proofs that AGM was happened on that particular date which you are coming. What is actually happening is there is one form CRF, that is change request form, is available. This is a physical form. This is actually the support by ministry, we can say that way, to help us, our professional. You can fill it up that and get signed by director and stamp of the company, and then you submit it with the respective registrar. The registrar also check the information,
Based on the
genuinity,
documents.
genuinity and all that. It has to give the reasons, what mistake you have done, why done, what correction you want. They check all that, then they put their stamp and signature and forward it to the Delhi,
Ministry of Corporate
IT
Affairs.
cell, and then they request get this mistake get corrected. But one thing, it should be genuine and it should be supported by proper document. Then this facility is available.
And it should not be very repeatedly used.
Yeah, and it should be also not after a long period. Obviously, then everyone will be concerned.
Correct.
If you find that there is a human error happened and it is obvious mistake one can make out, that can be corrected here.
And whether this form can be used for annual return or any form if it is wrongly filed.
Yeah, it is annual return, yes. Other form like for consolidation also it can be used, that after March the consolidation, this consolidation become applicable after subsequently. Then also this form is utilized many times.
Okay. This is a CRF, change request form, and this is physical form.
Yeah, physical,
and
not
where,
online.
Where from one can get this?
From the Office of Registrar of Companies.
Okay. And I think there is no fee for getting this form.
No. And that is also admirable that this support for our mistake is we are getting free of charge from ministry. Then we come to MGT9, which is...
Before that, ma'am,
Yeah,
can we
sure.
take some questions?
Yeah, please.
There is a question that what if there is a mistake in the code selection of the code, like in business activity while filing the business activity?
As I mentioned, you can try this, because if your activity is that and your notes to the account and all that shows that your activity is there, and then you can explain this code is wrongly selected, so can be corrected.
Because they are saying that there the selection of codes is very confusing. Sometimes it falls in the two codes.
Yeah.
So one may use this, but one
Here-
should not. Yeah.
Here I'll advise that if it is falling into form, actually you should consult the company and get I will say that opinion from them. They know their activity very well.
Okay.
And many times technical terms we are not so expert. So always get confirmation from the company before filling up this, that we are selecting this, it's falling in this two classes, these two codes. So which will be the correct interpretation?
That can be taken in management representation letter also. These all important
I know.
aspects where there is any confusion.
No, I will put that way, that be practical. Before filling up, you can check it, because since you are not technically that sound in that knowledge and inside having information, I think the management will be very supportive in this
Okay.
to guide you in this, because they will also not like to file the wrong information.
Yeah,
It's a correct information to be given. So always where the professional have confusion, there whether it will fall in this code or that, better you take it the written
the
communication from the, of course, written communication
Written.
from the company.
And based on those supporting documents, one should file that.
Right. And still if there is a mistake, I said that CRF form can be of help, where you can explain the reason.
Correct. Another question is, up to which date the information relating to director suggestion after close of financial year are to be mentioned in MGT 7?
Director suggestion.
Suggestion. If some
Suggestion.
director resigns,
Every information is at the end of the financial year. It's very clear. As at end of the financial year of the company.
okay.
This
So
entire
after
information.
that, if somebody resigns,
No, that will
is
not come.
required.
It will come in director's report.
Okay. And the related question was that somewhere I have seen that if a director resigns and he himself files MGT 11 for his resignation to the directly to the registrar MCA, and the companies are not aware of that.
But he must have given resignation to the company.
So this is a hypothetical situation, I think.
The resignation
He will
letter is
first give-
submitted,
correct.
acknowledged.
And that is also required to be filed along with MGT
Right.
11. So one has to give resignation first to the company, and
then the form
he
get
can
filed.
file the form.
He can file the acknowledged form that I have resigned, this is there, I have submitted with the company. So company have at least resignation letter.
Correct. If the company has changed the registered office and the required return has been filed, and the change of registered office is not updated at MCA site,
I was
which
not-
address I have to give?
No, I understand this point I skipped, that many times it happens that MCA data, there is a technical difficulty. No, I will say that it's not mistake of anyone. But technically sometimes the master data don't get updated for reason certain thing. And you do follow up, you trace the ticket and all that. But this will give the, different name. Actually this is changed. So here optional attachment, better you write it. And there you give all the details, so ticket traced and everything, communication done, all the supporting you give. So that will help you to show that you have taken care and you are making proper disclosures.
And then MCA will definitely help them, and
Yeah, the process otherwise also you are of the carrying out for updating MCA, then only that communication is born, but that takes time. So in between your annual return get filed, better you do this way as an optional attachment.
Another question, it doesn't relate to annual return, but one has posed that can one and the same person be appointed as KMP, as company secretary and CFO in the same company? So in this, we at the institute we have deliberated a lot, and the view of the ICSI is that for all three positions of KMP, there should be three different individuals, because otherwise one cannot justify his role. There are vast roles on all the three important KMPs. CFO is having a different role, company secretary is having a different role,
Right.
CEO is having a very vast role. So one cannot justify. So there should be three individual
Right.
persons on all these three positions of KMP. Another question to you, ma'am, is there are common directors in two companies. Will it be considered as one company is accustomed to act as per instruction of other company, like in filling the point for promoter?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, indirectly word. Now, if common directors majority are same, now again here it depends on the situation. It's not necessary the directors are common, that means it is controlling the affairs of the company. It's not necessary. So many times the company give declaration that directors are working independently. If it's on the facts of the case, so you have to rely on management representation. It's not necessary that directors are common. That's why the company is controlling each other. There can
It's
be
not
the
necessary. Okay.
it's not necessary. But you have to rely on management. I will put that there will be no common director, still there will be control of the management.
Another question is, if 2 years annual return MGT 7 filed simultaneously, non-compliance should be mentioned in both or one only?
Can you repeat please? What
Like annual return is not filed for any financial year,
Hmm.
and in another year, while filing the compliances, can we write that annual return of last year is not filed, and in next year when we file annual return, but it will not be possible for 2 continuous years that it is not filed.
Yeah, and if it is not filed, the non-compliance happened in last year. You are commenting for the past financial year only. You are not referring any event or
Before the-
non-compliance
okay.
after your close of financial year.
And before the starting of financial
Yeah.
year also. So
So-
during the financial year.
So during the financial year, this question is right. I understand that for the earlier year, you are required to file the annual return in the current financial year.
Correct.
For current financial year, your filing will be in the next financial
Next
year.
financial year.
So your compliance of earlier year comes in the audit period of yours. So you have to report that only.
Is it necessary to disclose the delay filings with ROC in the non-compliances? Delay filings, if you said that if something is material or all the delayed filings are
Yeah,
required to be
right.
reported.
Right.
All the delayed filings are required to be reported.
There are two views prevailing in the sense that delay is not non-compliance because till 270 days you are not penalized, prosecuted or anything. So
Yeah.
it cannot be termed as a non-compliance
Okay.
that way.
But something is if it is material like board's report.
Right.
Board's report is material form.
Right.
So if you are delaying it for 270 days, maybe it is intentional. If some
Right,
company is
right.
wanting to hide some important information,
Right.
I think that is a material and that should be
Right,
captured in the
right,
non-compliance. Whether
I think you can give this in guidance note because this is also always a matter of arguments between the client and the professional.
management
That this is when the act itself is not
giving this much of time.
It's very clearly writing that penalties will be there, prosecution will be there only after 270 days. And it is the administrative thing that we lapsed it, we agree that. Whether it should be recorded here or not, and it will be counted as non-compliance.
non-compliance.
Because it's only additional filing fee that way.
Correct, yeah. Whether non-compliance of secretarial standards are to be reported in case of compliance of all the provisions of the Act. We will always say.
My dear friend, I'll say that secretarial standard is now part of the Act. So please note that it is the Act and non-compliance of it will be non-compliance of Act. It should be very clearly understood. Secretarial standard is not something optional. It is compulsory. It is Act and it is non-compliance of Act if you don't comply secretarial standard.
And these standards are approved by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs.
Right.
There are committees and the ministry sees each and every point while approving the sectoral standards.
So now you have to keep in mind secretarial standard is Act only. Don't think it is something outside the Act.
Correct. I think this question you have already taken, whether we give details of company law or any other law where directors are penalized. So
We have
all the
covered
laws
all
are applicable. So the related question is, there is penalty for late payment of service tax or TDS. Would it be required to be mentioned under penalty and punishment? This is to be given. KMP is drawing remuneration from holding company and not from the company. Does it require to disclose the remuneration in the annual return?
See, if it's not drawing remuneration, then if the company has no cost, then you need not give. But if it's reimbursed, then of course. So it is cost to the company. If cost is not there, you need not. Then no remuneration.
So now you can go ahead with your extract, then we will identify more questions.
We will take now that form MGT 9, that is extract of annual return. And extract means it is a part of annual return, that is MGT 7, which is covered by this. Now, when this come under the Companies Act, that this extract will be attached to the director's report, lot of opposition was there. Why we have to give repeated? We are filing annual return. Then why this is already bulky director's report? And one important impact is director's report get prepared before AGM and even before board meeting, because directors, all attachment part of
Board's
it is a
report.
director's report part. So then this should be done quite well in advance, and it was exhaustive. So you have additional document to be prepared along with the director's report. So there was lot of dissatisfaction, to which my understanding is why this is. You will understand that annual return is filed with MCA, and if one wants to go, they have to do a search and then download the form, then study. While the director's report physically goes to the shareholders, to the banks, institution and outsiders, and it is available. So, the director's report is available in physical without going to the site. Further, in director's report, directors discuss not only financial information and performance, but non-financial information and performance, which is the part of annual return. So, this information, if you see, they discuss and analyze the board, composition of board, shareholders, further issue and all that. This all is very much covered here. Now, the important aspect, that penalty prosecution of directors. You are telling the performance of the directors in the director's report, but your annual return shows the penalty prosecution of directors. Why it should not be part such important information of the director's report? And see the position they have put in director's report, that's why, so that shareholders or outsiders who is reading director's report get connected information also, and that's why it is attached here. Though it is added burden and it's required to be done well in advance along with the draft director's report, because it will be signed by chairperson and the directors as we discussed.
Correct. And for ease of doing of business, the company's amendment bill 2016
Right.
proposes to delete this extract of annual return. They are saying every company now shall place a copy of annual return on the website of the company, and web link of such annual return shall be disclosed in the board's report. Not the extract, but the web link of the annual report, the annual return is required to be disclosed in the board's report.
So here I will put that way, if you have website.
Yeah.
If you don't have website, then you should
have
carry.
to, yeah.
So, and as I mentioned that in today's world, all corporates, all companies have website.
Yeah.
So this will be ease as such.
Website of the company, if any, they have written.
Right,
Yeah.
if any.
Yeah.
So I think people will incline to have website now.
Yeah.
Now in this MGT 9 also you give the registration detail of the company, then again your principal business activity where the code, and of course all business activity contributing 10% or more of the total turnover you are required to state here. Then particulars of holding subsidiary associate company, then shareholding pattern, because that shows the movement by the shareholders, promoters and outside people, that gives the information. Then promoters shareholding, any change during the year, then shareholding pattern of top 10 shareholder other than director promoter, shareholding of directors and KMP, of course indebtedness figure. I think they will cover that also, since they are removing from MGT 7 in amendment bill, MGT 9 also they will remove, I hope so. Remuneration of directors and KMP. Now this, as I am telling repeatedly, is challenge for the professionals as regards disclosure, but it's a fact, you have to disclose. It covers stock options, sweat equity, commission and any other thing, please specify remuneration. Remuneration to other directors, remuneration to KMP other than MD, manager and whole time director. Then I come to the point we discuss lot, penalty, punishment, compounding of offence. If you observe here, it's mentioned section of the Companies Act, brief description, details and authority and appeal. So MGT 9 talks about Companies Act, but MGT 7 is talking any other act. And you have to give about company, director and other officer in default. So, these were all MGT 7, 8 and 9. Now, also this annual return is required to be kept at the registered office of the company or any other place with the special resolution. And documents which you should ask for annual return is memorandum article. Then as I mentioned, better you ask forms and receipts from the company, but ROC inspection, registers, then disclosures from directors, then registers various minutes, transfer deed, then balance sheet along with notice of AGM, shareholders list, details of shareholders, certificate from RTA, then indebtedness certificate, then listing approval, then all intimation to stock exchange, change in the name or all that, board resolution for corporate action, and any order from court or regulatory body. Now, as we discuss, this all is required to be checked because lot of responsibility on professional and penalty is huge. And I'll say the very important thing about the annual return is that it is the details submitted in the annual return is a prime facie evidence in court and judicial authorities. There are two decided cases. That is, one is Mr. Om Prakash versus Unit Trust of India, in which it was mentioned that once the returns are certified by the ROC, court need not have to prove the truth of the content in any matter pending before the court. Another case is Sri Balaji Textile Mills Limited versus Ashok Kavle. If a person's name is shown as a member in the return filed by the company, then it is a conclusive evidence about person's membership in the company. So this should be noted. That's why the whatever content is there, you will agree that the court will accept because it is declared correct by director as well as company secretary or practicing CS. And in addition, if it is certified, then otherwise also government accept it as the form is correct. So the court. So lot of onus on the professional. This return is required to be maintained for the period of 8 years from the date of filing. If
Can
now
you take some more questions?
Yeah, please. I think how much time is there? Okay, 5 minutes.
If there is no written agreement, then can we presume that no board, body corporate or MD is accustomed to act in accordance with the directions or instructions of the board?
Again, if I'll put that when you do audit, you get certain idea, and if you have doubt, better you take in writing instead of presuming.
Correct.
Because you will raise this doubt or question if you have certain indication that this situation is existing. So if this kind of doubt you have, why can't you take this representation? And I think the management is very happy to give this representation.
Correct. So I think no written agreement is required. Directly or indirectly covers lot many other things also,
Right.
which you can get through various other facts or other documents also. Not only written agreement, other things also prove that some person is holding the control of the company.
So if you have doubt, better you take it. That protects
Correct.
you.
Yeah. If a director has not attended meetings of the directors for last 12 months, but has attended meetings of committees of board, whether his office of the director got vacated or not.
Act is
The
very
provision-
clear.
Yeah, correct. The provision says that one has to attend the board meetings. If the continuous vacation is for last 12 months, one has to vacate that. If a professional qualified employee is a director getting salary every month, will his remuneration be disclosed in director's report?
Professional company secretary.
Professional qualified employee is a director. If director is getting salary, that has to be disclosed.
All directors' remuneration.
Yeah. Is it okay if some negative statement like company has not issued any shares or voting right not exercised by employees in respect of shares is missed in the director's report.
Can you repeat what it
In
is?
the director's report, whether if something is missed which is negative, like company has not issued any shares by way of sweat equity.
This is the facts. If it
These
is,
are-
it is not that negative. It says that if not sweat equity not issued, it did not declare that the company has not issued.
It is not required to
It
be
is
stated.
not required.
Yeah, only the I think material statements. If something is required by law,
Event happened, that you report.
Only the-
event
yeah.
not happened, then
That
though
is-
you there's a
the
list
law-
of things. So
Yeah.
it is not required.
it is not required. Whether mentioning details of changes in share capital is mandatory in director's report. Share capitals changes are not required. I think
They are
annual
covered
return
in
is
annual
required.
report.
In director's report, it is not required. And somebody has asked, kindly inform which provisions empower to anyone to add or amend more points than 18 points in MGT 8 certification. I think that is a physical form, that is not a e-form. So while writing the physical form, you have to type all the 18 points and whatever material.
Yeah, my dear friend, I am just mentioning that you may face the situation. MGT 8 is covering all the events, but as I telling, it's very vibrant and evolving thing. If you want to disclose something additional, you can very well do it. Better protect yourself by adding it. If again I am telling that it is a professional call you have to take. It's not that any law should tell. It is your duty that if you come to know something additional which is not there in the form, better you disclose it. The authority is given with the responsibility attached to you.
Correct.
Since you are required to take all the precautions of the compliances by the company, if something according to your professional opinion is not covered by your certification, you feel that and you feel that you should disclose, please disclose it. That doesn't require the law to authorize you. Your responsibility is there that you are discharging. So you deserve this right from your responsibility.
Correct. Should the board resolution for authority to sign the form be passed every year, or
As I mentioned, it can be common in the starting of the year, or that way you can do it.
but for every year you have to take for filing every, because the
No, you can
directors-
write the common resolution also that these directors can be authorized to
For
sign
signing of
and
annual
making
report.
necessary declaration under all the act, including this
for
forms.
the years
and
to
its
come if
program.
until that director doesn't resign.
Yeah, right,
Okay.
right.
Is Nidhi companies required to submit MGT 7 or not? Nidhi, I think this is
Yes,
applicable on every company, so there is a separate form for Nidhi companies for annual return in NDH.
Actually, at present, according to me, this is the only form applicable to all companies, including foreign companies.
Yeah, foreign companies also required to file this. Is the company, if the company secretary is not related to that particular financial year with the company, then also he needs to sign the annual return for a listed
No
company?
choice. No choice. You have to cover totally all the responsibility of the company. So you have to sign. I know you are required to check then the documents very thoroughly because you were not involved during that part of the events happened.
Correct. Another question is, one promoter expired on the last day of financial year and his shares are not transmitted. Where to show his shareholding? Can he be included in the list of promoters? He was there in the
The last financial year he was there. The shares are held in the at present the name of promoter. So it should be there in the promoter. And next year you can.
Correct. Another question relates to SEBI ICDR regulations. In annual return, there is no differentiation between promoter and promoter group,
Right.
and hence all promoter group companies are shown in the promoter section only.
Hmm.
When company goes for IPO, it needs to identify and segregate between these two
yeah.
for
Yeah,
disclosure. Definition of promoter under the Companies Act inter alia is person who is named as promoter in the annual return. So can company going for IPO change the format of shareholding to show promoter and promoter group companies separately? So going forward it is aligned with the SEBI, or whether footnotes should be given?
Now, here as I mentioned that it's not that you name anyone. When you will go for IPO, you will justify why that person is promoter or promoter group. So, you can change, since you rightly mentioned here the differentiation is not there, that can be mentioned and they have very well idea that this is promoter group. So, you can write that. That is not.
Right. And one more important thing which is coming in the company's amendment bill, that is the central government is now coming with the abridged version of board's annual return and board's report for OPC, 1% company and small companies.
So, this company will be relieved, which the people always have complained. Such a huge information we have to give.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, any other concluding remarks, ma'am, you want to give?
I'll just say that this is very important document for professional, whether you are employee or practicing, because it give all the compliances of all the provision applicable to the company during the year, whether you take MGT 7 or MGT 8. As I said that MGT 7 also cover and ensures and make declaration that the company has complied all the provisions including secretarial standard. So, it's a total compliance audit of the company during the year. So, one has to be very careful because it is prima facie evidence of the content in the court of law. So, this will be the proof for all the contents because you have signed or you have certified. So, be careful that in future it will change so many things. So, one has to be very careful and not in one day certification or signing, please.
Correct.
This is a very responsible job. Take it very seriously and avoid last date signing, last date certification. That's all I'll tell.
So, with this, now this session has come to an end. Thank you all the viewers for participating. Without you, it could not have been a successful webinar. We have the success of any webinar depends on the participation, and we have around 1500 viewers at this time. And keep participating, keep excelling. The video link for this webinar would also be soon uploaded at the YouTube channel of the ICSI. And we thank you, ma'am, for enlightening the viewers and sharing
Thanks
your
a lot.
knowledge, and coming all the way from Mumbai to share the knowledge.
It's always opportunity and pleasure to serve the ICSI.
And as a token of appreciation, small green plant from ICSI.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thanks a
you,
lot.
ma'am.
Thank you.